It started with a single glance, the kind that pierces deeper than words ever could. In a crowded store on a quiet afternoon, all eyes turned toward one man. He didn't say anything, didn't move wrong, didn't steal a thing. But suspicion followed him like a shadow he couldn't shake. Within minutes, whispers turned to accusations, and what should have been an ordinary day became a nightmare caught on camera. By the time the truth came out, lives had already changed forever. Because sometimes racism doesn't need a weapon, just a look and the silence that follows. Marcus Brown had never thought much about being watched. At 32, he worked long shifts as an IT specialist, kept mostly to himself, and filled his weekends with visits to his mother's house on the east side of town. He'd built a quiet life, one defined by effort, not excuses. The small suburban neighborhood where he lived wasn't known for trouble, but it wasn't known for acceptance either. That day, he'd only stopped at the store to grab a few things before heading home. Milk, bread, a few batteries. The usual. The store's fluorescent lights hummed above him, the air conditioning a little too cold. He noticed the glances right away. A mother pulling her child a little closer, a clerk pausing mid-scan to watch him walk by. Still, Marcus ignored it. He'd learned long ago that reacting only made things worse. Outside, the world looked normal. Cars passed. People smiled. But inside that store, tension brewed, invisible but heavy, like the air before a storm. A security guard whispered into his radio. A cashier froze when Marcus reached into his pocket for his wallet. Every second became a test, every movement a threat waiting to be misread. And yet, Marcus wasn't angry. Not yet. He was used to being mistaken for someone suspicious, someone dangerous. It happened too often to keep count. But this time, something felt different. This time, the stares weren't just uncomfortable, they were loaded, expectant, as if everyone was waiting for him to prove them right. The sound of the store's intercom cracked through the uneasy silence. Security to aisle 4, a voice said casually, too casually. Marcus froze. Aisle 4. That was where he stood, staring at a shelf of cereal boxes. He told himself it couldn't be about him. Maybe someone had spilled something, or maybe a kid got lost. But when he turned, he saw the guard moving toward him, tall, broad, wearing mirrored sunglasses even indoors. The man's hand hovered near his belt, where his badge glinted just beneath a set of keys. Marcus' chest tightened. He took a slow breath and reached for a box of cereal, pretending not to notice. But the whispers had already started again. A woman clutching a shopping cart leaned closer to her friend, both of them pretending to browse. A child stared openly, curious about the tension that even he could sense. "So," the guard said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "I'm going to need you to come with me." No accusation yet. No reason given. Just that tone, the one that carried centuries of assumption. Marcus's mind raced. He replayed every move he'd made since walking in. The cameras above, the receipt in his pocket, the cash in his wallet. He hadn't done anything wrong, and still, he knew how quickly that fact could stop mattering. He followed the guard to the front of the store, every eye tracking his steps. He could feel the weight of their judgment pressing against his back, that silent verdict of guilt handed down without trial. The cashier, the manager, even a teenager restocking shelves, all watching, none speaking. At the customer service counter, the manager waited. "We received a report," she said carefully, "of suspicious activity." Marcus didn't ask who reported it. He didn't have to. He just nodded, his throat dry. "Would you mind showing us what's in your pockets?" He complied. Wallet, keys, phone, a grocery list scrawled in his mother's handwriting. Nothing else. The guard's expression didn't change. The manager frowned. An uncomfortable pause hung in the air. Then came the real damage, not from what they found, but from what they didn't say. The murmurs spreading behind him. The recording phone lifted discreetly by a bystander. The shame that shouldn't have been his to carry. When they finally let him go, Marcus didn't speak. He just walked out, feeling the weight of invisible chains, the kind that follow you even after you've been cleared. But by then, someone had already posted the video online. By nightfall, the video had spread faster than Marcus could comprehend. Strangers dissected every second, pausing, rewinding, judging. Some called him a thief, others a victim. His name trended beside words that burned through him like acid. His phone buzzed nonstop, but he couldn't bear to look. Even silence had turned cruel. At work the next day, the stares were worse than the comments online. His supervisor offered forced sympathy, the kind that only deepened the wound. A co-worker whispered, "You're famous now," half joking, half afraid. Marcus smiled faintly, but his hands trembled. The world had branded him before ever knowing his story. That evening, he sat in his car outside the same store, staring through the windshield. The sign above the entrance glowed in the dark, indifferent. He thought of every time he'd swallowed his pride, every time he'd told himself it wasn't worth fighting. But this time, the weight inside him shifted, from shame to something sharper. He stepped out, walked inside, and stood in the very aisle where it began. A few customers recognized him, their eyes widening with that mix of fear and curiosity. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't break anything. He simply stood still, breathing the heavy air of a place that had stolen his dignity. The next morning, Marcus woke to a flurry of messages, not from strangers, but from people who had seen the video and finally understood. Some apologized. Some offered words of support. But no amount of validation could erase the bruises left by hours of suspicion, judgment, and humiliation. He realized the world had already seen him through the lens of bias, and no explanation could fully undo that first impression. He returned to the store one last time, this time not to confront, but to witness. The staff greeted him with polite, measured nods. The cameras above hummed. The aisle seemed ordinary again, but Marcus carried a quiet awareness. The event had changed him. It wasn't just about one store, one guard, or one video. It was about a society that judged before understanding, that assumed guilt based on the color of his skin. He thought of his mother, who had always warned him that the world wouldn't see him as simply Marcus, but as a symbol, sometimes of fear, sometimes of hope. And in that moment, he understood. While he couldn't control other people's assumptions, he could control how he responded. He could reclaim his dignity, demand justice, and amplify his story so it might change someone else's path. As he walked out into the afternoon sun, Marcus felt the weight of the incident lift slightly, replaced by resolve. The camera lens might capture a moment, but it could never capture his truth. And he wondered, quietly but fiercely, how many more people had to carry the same burden before the world began to see beyond the surface. Because if one look could almost ruin a life, how many lives have been lost to countless unseen glances?